Hello and welcome back. In Unit 2 of Week 4, we shall cover some of the extended supply chain processes, namely the stock transfer scenarios, intra-company and intercompany stock transfers, and also take a look at the integration of projects with supply chain. Let's begin with intra-company stock transfers. Intra here means within the same company. So, by intra-company stock transfers, we mean transferring of stock or inventory from one site within a company to another site within the same company. Let's assume a typical distribution setup where some sites in the company are responsible only for the fulfilling of sales, whereas some other sites are responsible only for manufacturing. The same is also shown in the example here. Site 2 is the factory or the manufacturing site, and Site 1 is the distribution center. When there is a demand at Site 1, the system understands this demand and plans for it by creating appropriate receipt elements, in this case stock transfer proposals, by placing a sourcing request to the other site, that is the Site 2. During planning at Site 2, the demand originating from Site 1 shall be considered and appropriate inventory shall be made available by executing planning runs. This inventory is then shipped by Site 2 to replenish the inventory at Site 1. Now this Site 1, can fulfill the demand originating out of the sales order. There is also another shorter way in case you do not want to follow the entire planning cycle. You could directly create a stock transfer order for transfer of inventory. The key here is already knowing that the Site 1 needs a product and creating the order to initiate the stock transfer of the product from Site 2 to Site 1. So in this case, the process initiates at Site 2 instead of Site 1. So what are the prerequisites? There is only one, that there must be a transportation lane existing between Site 1 and Site 2. I believe you have already looked at transportation lanes in the week 1. In case it is known that a product or a material has always to be sourced from another site, you can configure it for internal procurement in the product master settings. But this is just an option. As such, any product can be planned and executed for stock transfer. Let's now take a look at the process steps involved in intra-company stock transfers. High-level steps include planning supply, initiating, fulfilling demand and fulfilling inbound. Planning supply from the requester side, initiating the stock transfer order from the supplier side, fulfilling the outbound delivery by initiating the outbound delivery from the sender side, which in turn will fulfill the inbound delivery at the inbound side. As we discussed earlier, you could also start the process from the creation of the stock transfer order directly instead of starting this via the planning run. We shall see each of these steps in the system demo shortly. Let's just quickly move on to the system demo. I have logged in here as an administrative user just for the sake of easiness. What we see here is I have also created a sales order for a particular site so that it can create a demand element. Let's quickly take a look at the sales order. The item that we have used in the sales order is P100149. If I now take a look at the demand for this in the customer demand work center, let's do that quickly. Yes, what we see is for the 3069 sales order, the availability to promise is red. That means it's not available in the system and hence it is showing up as red. Let's do the planning run for this. Okay. So if you see that the demand element is here and then we just run planning. Okay. Once we run planning, what happens in the system is a stock transfer proposal has got created. Now, why did the stock transfer proposal get created automatically? For that, let's quickly take a look at the product setting. Let me just open the product here quickly. In the product, you may already know that there are different modes that you can set for procurement. We have an in-house production, we have external procurement, but along with that, what we also have is internal procurement. So for this particular product, in the site P1123, I have set it up for internal procurement, that is configured it to have the product sourced from a different site. And that is why a stock transfer proposal got created in the product planning run. Let's see which site is it going to get sourced from. And what we see here is it is going to get sourced from the site P1100. Let's see the site as well and what is the situation of the product in this site. Okay, I will add the site here and then open it here. Okay, so in this site you see that there is a demand created for that particular product which needs to be sent to the site P1123. All right, now let's just go back and release this particular proposal. Okay, and then we save it. If I quickly now look at the product in the next MRP segment of the site, and we see here that the stock transfer demand has now got created, but what we also see that there is an available stock in the system and hence there is no need for us to run the MRP here again. In such a case, it can be sourced directly from the available stock. Let's quickly go back to the customer demand view and see what has happened in the other site for it. Okay, I'll go back in the customer demand view, and if I see the orders created today, I will see that there is a stock transfer order which has got created based on the demand which has got originated. All right, now the availability to promise shows green because we just saw that enough stock is available in the system. I shall release this. Once I release this, it takes us back to the normal processing of outbound delivery processing. So let's now go into the outbound logistics work center, delivery proposals, and look for it under the stock transfer proposals. Yeah, and I see my stock transfer proposal here for the quantity that I had requested for. I will do a post goods issue to quickly create the outbound delivery. What should happen is as soon as this outbound delivery gets created, an inbound delivery notification should be sent to the receiver side. So we see here the actual quantity, and I shall also send it from this side. Okay, and then I shall release it. So once I release it, an inbound delivery notification 355 is the outbound delivery should have got sent. Let's quickly see what has happened at the inbound side. And what we have is the inbound delivery notifications. Let's see if any have got created newly, and that's it. This is the one which I created from the outbound delivery originating out of the sender side, and now this has created an inbound delivery notification at the receiving side. Let's quickly post a goods receipt for it based on the delivery notification. And once we have the item in the stock, I assume the ATP should show us green. Yes, so we have done this here, and then let's say save and close. And once, now the stock should get created in the system. Let's see the stock overview. Earlier, if you see, I had checked it, it was only there for the product in P1100. Let's just see what has happened in the system now. Yeah, and you see now 3 quantities have been increased in the P1123 site as well. Quickly taking a quick look at the sales order in the customer demand. Where is the customer demand? Let me quickly find it here. Yeah, here. And the customer demand. Let's look at the orders that we created today. Yes, and this was the sales order which was showing up with a red ATP. Let's check availability now. And you see now the ATP is green. So in this way, the stock transfer scenario has helped fulfilling a particular demand originating in one site by sourcing the requirement from the other side. Let's now go back to the system, the presentation, and look at the next steps. Okay, the next section here is intercompany logistics. Intercompany logistics and intercompany here means between two companies. So in this scenario, we refer to the transfer of stock or inventory between two different companies. The process is typically used to transfer stock in between partner companies to fulfill the stock requirements. It is to be noted that both the companies must be modeled and set up as partner companies in Business by Design. At a high level, the process is as shown in the picture. You have a buying company, that is the receiving company where there is a stock shortage, and then you have the selling company, that is the sending company which fulfills the stock shortage. The buying company will initiate the process of purchasing via the purchase order, which in turn initiates a sales process in the selling company via the sales order. Let's take a look at the detailed process steps involved here. This scenario combines the purchasing process of the receiving company with the selling process. The process steps involved in the scenario are shown here. The purchase order creation in the buying company will result in a sales order creation in the selling company, and it happens simultaneously via message-based communication. After this, the processing shifts to the selling company side. In this case, the sales order is planned and fulfilled via the usual sales scenario processing involving ATP check, MRP run, customer demand release, outbound delivery via task or PGI, and then releasing the outbound delivery. The release of the outbound delivery sends out an XML notification to the buyer side informing them of the shipment of goods. This results in creating of the inbound delivery notification. Once the goods are physically received at the buying company warehouse, the inbound delivery could be created. The sender side is then initiating a customer invoice after the shipment of goods. This customer invoice will simultaneously then create a supplier invoice in the receiving system. As you can see, the full cycle of buying via purchase to procure to pay and the full cycle of sales via order to cash has to be fulfilled in both the companies. One of the aspects about the process is that all the communication between the buyer and the seller company happens via XML communication and is almost instantaneous. Excuse me. Let's go back to the system demo and let's quickly see how this can be achieved in the system. What I would like to show you first is the buying. Let me just close all the screens that are open in the system now so as to avoid some confusion. Yeah, so what I would like to show you is the buying and the selling company now. So we have two companies modeled in the same Business by Design system, and in our case we would have Almica as the purchasing company and Innovat as the selling company. Let's quickly create the sales order. Technically, these would be different users who are using the system and creating it via their logins, but for the ease of understanding, I shall just use the same login and show you the process. So I'll create a new sales order, and in the sales order, sorry about that, I am supposed to create a purchase order. I shall start with the purchase order in the buying company, and let me quickly create a purchase order, new purchase order. You see here that the buying company is Almica. Let's have the selling company as Innovat. Okay. Now, let's add a product here. Okay. Fine. For this product, I would like to request it from the partner company. I'll say the ship to location can be P1100, and let's take a quantity of 7 each is to be delivered. The gross price is auto-filled in, and that's it. Now we create the order. So the purchase order should now be created. Yes, and the purchase order has been created and has been sent to the supplier by XML. So the order ID is 707. Let's just keep that in mind and see what has happened in the sales order side. I'll quickly open the sales orders. And if you see here, there is a sales order already created with an external reference 707, which is the purchase order that we created. The account is Almica because at the purchasing side, my company is Almica. So for Innovat, the account is Almica. And if I just quickly open the sales order, I want to show you that in this case, the selling company is Innovat. I will show you via the involved parties. You can quickly see it here. the party role. The account is Almica and the seller is Innovat. Okay, fine. The sales order is created and has already been sent. Let's quickly check what has happened to it in the outbound logistics control. Do we have enough stock to fulfill the demand, or do we have to run the MRP? Let's see what has happened in orders created today. Okay, I think this is the one we created, yes, and the ATP is already green. That means we have enough stock. That's good news. Let's go ahead. We'll release this, move on to the outbound delivery proposal side with the outbound logistics. I will select all proposals. Let's quickly search for it based on the product ID that we had. Yes, this is the one, correct. And I'll do a post goods issue. When I do a post goods issue now, similar to the intra-company stock transfer scenario, an inbound delivery notification should be sent to the receiving side and an inbound delivery notification should be created there. So let's see what will happen. Outbound delivery 356 has been created. Let's take a look at the inbound side. Inbound delivery notifications. Okay, 356 is the one we created just now. For Innovat, that's right. Let's post a post goods receipt. So, we are almost at the end of the process. Okay, save and close. Let's wait for the, okay, so the inbound delivery has now been created. So the supply chain part of the process stops here. After this, based on the invoices on the outbound delivery, you can create a customer invoice in the system, and the customer invoice will trigger the supplier invoice in the system. What you could also see here is there is no dedicated work center for the intercompany process. It follows a normal sales cycle and a normal purchase cycle. And what you should also keep in mind is that though I showed you the entire process from the same work center login of a particular administrative user, ideally these are carried out by different personnel in both the companies. That brings us to the end of this demo, and let's switch back to the slides for the next section. In the last part of this unit, we shall take a look at the integration of projects with supply chain. This process is termed as materials and projects. Especially for companies that handle long-running projects, there is a general need to store the inventory allocated to a project and capture the expenses only when the goods are consumed by the project. This scenario helps to achieve the same by integrating projects with supply chain planning and warehousing operations. Let's take a look at the detailed steps. The planning project business step enables you to create, plan and structure your project. While planning for the materials at the project task level, you must clearly mention whether a material is tracked and consumed from inventory. In the initiation phase, the creation of project stock order enables you to send the material requirement to the supply chain, requesting them to allocate the materials for the project. The project stock order is a document where we capture the demand for materials originating out of the project. You can also specify how you would like the fulfillment to happen, whether consumption at site is needed or you would do so via outbound deliveries on pickup or pre-delivery mode. In the execution phase of the step, the supply chain takes over the planning and the allocation of the material. It enables the supply chain planner to plan for the demand requests from the project. In the allocating inventory step of the execution, the inventory is allocated to the project by reserving the stock at site for direct consumption or pickup or pre-delivery to the required location. In the consuming inventory step of the execution, the project consumes the allocated inventory to execute the project task. It is not necessary that the entire allocated quantity is consumed in one step. The quantity can be consumed in multiple phases. In the invoicing business process step, the quantities consumed against a project stock order can be invoiced in two ways: by creating the project invoice request manually or automatically. The picture here just shows all that we discussed, but in a more detailed manner. As you can see from the process steps, there is a tight and seamless integration between the project and the supply chain planning, which ensures a smooth handover of requirements and inventory building for requests coming out of the projects. Goods can be allocated to the project and made unavailable to the other projects so that you do not run the risk of allocating the same inventory to multiple different projects. Goods consumed against a project are captured in expenses rather than the ones that are allocated to the project, thus giving a realistic picture of project expenses. You can also manage identified stock, that is batches and lots, or even restricted inventory. Now, let's take a look at the short summary. What we saw in this unit was integrated supply chain via intracompany stock transfers, extended and integrated supply chain via intercompany stock transfers, and an overview of the integration between projects and supply chain. That's all for this particular unit. See you in the next one.